You're watching Bharat Shakti. I'm Ramananda Sengupta. Today we're going to be discussing the events in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and we have two very, very distinguished guests with us today. One is Major General SC Meston, who among other senior positions during his distinguished career in the military was also a defense attaché in Kabul. And we have Mr. Bhashyam Kasturi, a former journalist and academic who till recently was with the National Security Council Secretariat. Thank you so very much for joining us today, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Let me begin with you, General. You've served as a defense attaché in Kabul. What was the mood like when you were there? Were Pakistan and Afghanistan ever really friends with each other?
The mood in Afghanistan was, I think in just 6 statements I will sum it up.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, I realized the Afghans, despite being Islamic State, despite being Muslims, they love India the most. India, the most loved nation, admired nation, and the most hated nation is Pakistan. That is the first thing.
Okay.
Second is Durand Line has always been a very, very important issue to the Afghans. None of the Afghan government, including Taliban 1.0 and Taliban 2.0, has ever recognized Durand Line, and that remains the contentious issue. And this is where Pakistan, I felt, had been exploiting, dividing the Pashtuns on both sides of the Durand Line as terrorists so that they keep fighting amongst themselves, and therefore that they digress from the actual thing of the Durand Line, and also their diversion was towards Kashmir. So this was the Pakistan, what I thought it was. The second aspect was, the third aspect is now. And then also, I had come across many Afghan Taliban, and they had started realizing that the Pakistan army and the ISI were manipulating them, and obviously now it goes back to the Durand Line, and they had realized that how badly they have manipulated them. Therefore, the Taliban were ready to hit back at Pakistan army and ISI, and they wanted moral support of India. This was told to be by number of Afghans who were in part of Afghan Taliban. The fourth thing which I realized is all the nations who were there, part of the International Security Assistance Force, 52 nations, they definitely did their job to a lot of extent, in bringing transformation in the country, elections and so forth, training the Afghan National Army, establishing their government setup. So all this was going on well. But at the end, somehow they faltered. Probably they did not realize the aspirations of Afghanistan, and they depended more on the Pakistan. They were misled. The Americans were misled by the Pakistanis, and therefore they went for Doha Peace Accord, and whatever it happened, it was a total failure. And we see how Taliban returned. Another thing which I realized was the American aim was unclear. Their aim was fix, find, and finish Al-Qaeda, and reverse the military momentum of Taliban. So therefore they had realized, and even as an Indian I felt that Taliban, basically they are Afghans, Pashtuns. So they are a reality, and therefore everyone needs to engage with them. And that is how I started engaging with them, and I realized that this is what they are looking for from India, because they realized that they were being exploited by the Pakistanis. Another thing which I realized, Afghanistan has got a lot of potential for India because this geostrategic location offers us inroads towards Central Asian republics, and therefore I always felt that it is a good counter to the CPEC, what the Chinese have made for us through Bandar Abbas, through Chabar, to link up through Afghanistan to the Central Asian republics is another advantage. Another advantage I realized, somehow as a military man, which perhaps never ever figured in a military calculus or a strategic calculations, that Afghanistan, the kind of historical friendship we had, the kind of affinity we had, we have been there doing so many things. We never used Afghanistan, which we should have used as another front against Pakistan, the way Pakistan has been using so many fronts, China front, now Bangladesh front, infiltration front. So we should have used Afghanistan as a front against Pakistan. And the last but not the least, Afghanistan is that country which had which has $4.1 trillion worth mineral reserves. And therefore, today, that country offers India golden opportunity to do exploitation of minerals and in jointness with them, develop Afghanistan into something much better than Dubai. That is the potential Afghans have. But unfortunately, the whole problem is the Pakistanis never want them to flourish, keep them uneducated, keep them fighting so that Durand Line as an issue never comes up. And last point is that another realization was they knew a strong Indian army or a strong India and a strong Afghanistan onto the west is their downward fall. And therefore, they wanted to hit them. They were very effective by radicalizing that nation, which was a liberal nation. They radicalized, and you know where Afghanistan is today. They've gone back to Stone Age, and they tried with India also, Kashmir, Punjab. To some extent, they were successful, but India withstood, and they, sorted out Afghanistan badly. So actually, they knew they were hemmed in by two powerful forces. So that was their strategy which they played, and that resulted into the concept of the strategic depth.
I'll come back to you on that particular point you made about us using Afghanistan. Maybe that's one of our strengths rather than our weaknesses. I don't know, but I'll come back to you on that one. Sir, Mr. Kasturi, the thing is that when the Taliban, the second time when they came in, Pakistan used to speak about how they've regained strategic depth and things like that. Was that a valid assessment to make? What changed suddenly?
Well, I think, you see, as Gen Meston mentioned earlier, I don't think the Taliban-Pakistan relationship has ever been cordial, if I may use the term. There have always been varying degrees of unease in the relationship. And therefore, I think Pakistan misjudged the situation when the Taliban took power in 2021. And they assumed, perhaps wrongly, that the Taliban would provide them assistance and help, and eventually, as General Meston mentioned, strategic depth in the future. But I think the relationship, I think the Taliban have outgrown that relationship of Pakistan being the teacher and the Taliban being the student, because after all, it was the Pakistan which nurtured, supplied arms, did everything to raise the Taliban. So I think the Taliban realized that now they were a nation, or they were in control of a nation, and therefore their behavior towards Pakistan shifted. And it's the shift which we have seen, historically, both when they were in power in the late 90s, the fact that they passed a resolution against the Durand Line in the Afghan parliament. And more recently, you saw that they have consciously decided to back the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, a terrorist group which says that we will form an Islamic state in Pakistan and impose Sharia. This support to the TTP lies at the nub of the differences today between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So I think the shift we are seeing today is more dramatic, but it's always been there. So the differences, what I'm trying to say is the differences have always been there. They've been exacerbated by the fact that the Taliban today has taken a stand contrary to what Pakistan believes is in its interests.
There's always been this talk about good Taliban and bad Taliban. Do you really think they can differentiate like that?
Pakistan policy throughout has been, good Taliban, bad Taliban. And this is something again which is amazing. And Amrullah Saleh, who was the vice president also of Afghanistan and who was also the erstwhile, he was a great strategist, let me tell you, and he was also in the National Directorate of Security. He's a Tajik. He used to always say, there is a saying in Afghan, on one hand, you can't carry 2 melons.
Right.
Okay. So this is what he stated about Pakistan. For the TTP and the Afghan Taliban, they're basically all Pashtuns from both sides of the Durand Line. They have got the same flag, same ideology, same language, same culture, same roots. So what is the difference? So on what basis are they terming one as the good Taliban and the other as the bad Taliban? So this shows the Pakistan, psyche, that they want to just use these people, both sides of the Pashtun line, the Durand line, and exploit them, which I mentioned in my earlier statement also. This is the strategic game. The strategy is absolute clear. Keep the Pashtuns, keep them illiterate, uneducated, fighting among themselves on the all possible lines, make them terrorists to fight the external world, to fight the internal dimensions over there, so that they never ever focus on the main issue of Durand Line. This is what their whole strategy is. So therefore they fool them, and now that's why I stated that the Afghan Taliban and TTP both have realized that they cannot now be exploited furthermore. And the best part is, as on date, I see a Pashtunistan revivalism. The Pashtuns are getting united. And this is going to be the end of Pakistan. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and lot of parts of Balochistan may, in the long run, become part of greater Afghanistan or the greater Pakhtunistan. This is what may happen. So Pakistan is going to fail badly in its calculus. And we also must remember, India has, which a lot of Indians do not know, we have 100 kilometers of border.
That's right.
With Afghanistan. That too on the Wakhan corridor. It's so important to us. I have been reading so many literatures. I have heard various, eminent personalities. None of them talks about that we have a border with Afghanistan. So that's a national interest. We have got a border. We have got such traditional historical linkages that today I'm quite sure the question will come up: what India should do. We have got lots to do in that area. So anyway, to sum it up, the Durand Line, the bad Taliban and the good Taliban is a Pakistan duplicity, which I think now has led to Pashtun revivalism.
Okay. We'll have a very quick question before we move on to the next thing, sir. That, we talked about good Taliban, bad Taliban, but we've also had this issue about human rights and stuff like that, which is causing a lot of issues. How big a barrier is that in sort of our interactions with the Taliban?
Well, I don't think, the West has traditionally had this, view of nations and nation states from the perspective of human rights, from their handling, in this particular case, of education, girls' education, women's education, and so on. But I think in India's case, we haven't sort of restricted ourselves to that, paradigm. And I think we've looked at it from the interests of the Afghan people. So therefore, traditionally, and all our investments in Afghanistan, which till some years ago, I think was around 3 billion, might be more now, have focused on development projects, humanitarian assistance. And I think the key has been that whatever we do is focused on that. And second, as General Meston mentioned, just to sort of expand on what he said, is to gain access into Central Asia. The key for us, Afghanistan, you would remember that we built a road from Delaram to Zaranj, I think about 80 kilometers. The sole idea of that is provide connectivity to Afghanistan. So for us, for India, the primary objective is the people of Afghanistan. So, when you're dealing with issues such as these, they are definitely on board. They're definitely a matter of concern. And I think for that, we have, thought through the process of how we should be engaging with our neighbors, in particular on the Western front. But the primary issue there, and historically, this is a fact. Our dealings with Afghanistan are focused on what we can do with them to counter Pakistan in South Asia. That has been the primary focus. And therefore, whatever else we do from a development point of view, from humanitarian assistance point of view, from a strategic perspective, is good. Because eventually it helps us to offset Pakistan influence in Afghanistan.
General, we were talking about, you said that good Taliban, bad Taliban are perhaps not really a distinction that we want to make. But the first time that the Taliban occupied thing, it had become a terrorist hub, if you recall. Do you think that situation prevails in Taliban too? Is Afghanistan still a terrorist hub in some ways?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact of the matter is, whatever it is, Afghan Taliban is a branded terrorist organization. There is no doubt. But today we have to also accept a reality that they are in governance now for almost 3 years, 4 months. So the entire world has to accept that. India has to accept that, and therefore, rightfully so, we have to establish working relationship with them. And since we are traditional friends, let me tell you, I have found another good thing. I found the Pashtuns, they have a lot of flexibility. Example, Indian Army has trained so many people from Afghanistan, a lot of Pashtuns. And mind you, some of them who were trained way back in 70s, 80s, I had got them to India as part of so many delegations to visit the alma mater, the Indian Military Academy. They went to Akshardham Temple, Muslim going to Akshardham Temple. They went to Hanuman Temple. There a lot of flexibility. They were in emotions. So what I'm trying to say is, having interacted with the large number of Pashtuns, especially Pashtuns, they are quite flexible. And since they realize that Pakistan has exploited them, so the whole thing is that perhaps India now, since the question has now come on the governance part, they are a terrorist organization. Let's take our mind to Syria. It's another terrorist organization.
True.
This gentleman, Ahmad al-Shan, today, people from all over the world, Western countries, Italy foreign minister was there yesterday. People from all over, Americans, everyone is contacting them. So these type of things is a reality and India has to accept it. Now, how can we improve them? We have so much of expertise, political expertise, diplomatic expertise, military expertise. And today, all of us, this is our national strength. We can have lot of meetings with Taliban. In fact, there is one ex-Indian Military Academy trained Taliban who is the Deputy Foreign Minister, Sher Mohammad. He's there. Now, he's just one batch junior to me. Let's contact these people. More number of dialogue, more number of diplomacy with them. We have to, stress on inclusive government, Tajiks, Hazaras, Uzbeks to be part of the system. Number 2, women education, women rights. Explain to them what's happening in Syria. Those people are now opening up, they're protecting minorities, everything. So I think to make that a reality, inclusivity, women and children's rights, and of course, the good governance, I think they are quite amenable. And this is where India can take a lead role because no one is, wanting them to be part of a governance now. So India, I think, needs to focus on this governance part and they are amenable. Let's send a lot of delegations, mixed delegations. We can go to, X, Y country, any country, have neutral country, go to their country, they can come. And, when you have constant interactions, I think they will understand where they are going wrong in the part of governance.
We just recently had a foreign secretary meeting.
Very true, very true.
One of the things in Dubai or somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So do you think that thing has already started?
Yes, it has started. I personally feel it has started a little late. We should have started it early. You look in Syria, moment the person came in power, all nations are, flogging, whether from West Asia, whether from Europe, whether American. So here at least, since we are traditional friends, let's take the initiative. Let us start having more level of talks. And let me tell you, Afghanistan, another thing I've realized, they are very amenable to talks, meetings. They are very relaxed, very informal. Unlike, some Western countries, it's very formal. They're very relaxed. Let's send large number of delegations. Let's take pride in our military people, retired people. I'm not saying for myself. There are large number of military people who know them. Everything. He's been in the NSA Secretariat now almost 12 years. One realizes, that all diplomatic channels, military channels, defense diplomacy, everything needs to be opened simultaneously. Let's talk and they will improve. I have no doubts they can improve. Who will dislodge Afghan Taliban today? No one on earth can dislodge them. Americans have lost their strategic interest there. So they, unlike Taliban 1.0. So if they are going to exist, let's start engaging and get them also, let us continue to engage with the National Resistance Front so that both options are open and get them also on board like Amrullah Saleh, Ahmad Masood, who is the son of Ahmad Shah Masood. Let's get them together, inclusive government. And let me tell you, another thing since the first question is, Pakistan tried to create, communal rifts targeting Hazaras. Afghanistan, one thing I have realized, anyone in the world can do anything. The strength is their four, ethnicities. They are all united. It may be temporary, that little disengagement, but they are united. They have sustained as a nation for years and years.
True.
So that's the strength, and India can do lots. We can show them the way.
So, Mr. Kasturi, how comfortable are you with this notion that the general just suggested that it doesn't matter who is in power, as long as you're in power, we should be able to deal with you?
Well, you see, I think historical experience tells us that India has dealt with anybody in power, whether it's especially in the neighborhood. The case of Pakistan is obvious, the case of Myanmar is obvious, and now Bangladesh, the most recent example. So therefore, dealing with people who are in power is a question of accepting the reality that you have a certain force in power, and that it's unlikely that there's going to be anybody who's going to be able to dislodge that force, and in this case, the Taliban. And therefore, you engage with them. Now, the question, of course, does arise as to what degree and level you want to engage, and to what objective. So I think India's objectives in Afghanistan, as I said earlier, one, of course, relates to the people of Afghanistan and to maintain the historical links that we've had. I think, if you dig a little deeper, you will arrive at the situation, as Gen Meston was mentioning, about the Pashtuns. We have had a historical and traditional link with the Pashtuns during our freedom struggle. So it's but natural that we extend a hand, to the community, perhaps not overtly, but it could be done covertly. That there is and I think finally, most importantly, as I said earlier, and I would like to reiterate, you see, everything in the strategic domain that is seen is done with the objective of ensuring that your enemy, in this case Pakistan, is kept off balance as far as possible, as much as possible. And it's with that objective that we are engaging with the Taliban today. So therefore, issues of governance will continue to be discussed. I mean, to just give you one example, we have trained Afghan civil servants. As Sir said, we have trained people in the Afghan military. I'm sure this will continue in the future also. At an appropriate stage, when you realize that, the world now recognizes Taliban officially as a government, if it ever happens, we will do so. At that stage, that official channel of, engagement will begin and will continue. But short of that, I think we will do everything we need to keep Afghanistan engaged, because that is an extremely important geographical location for us in terms of our access to the Middle East and to Central Asia.
Of course.
So I don't think that our engagement might have been a little slow. We might have demurred in terms of reaching out to the Taliban, because they are officially a UN designated terrorist group. But the reality of their being in power makes it imperative for India to engage with them, to try and see what you can do within the limits, the constraints that you have. I think we've done fairly well so far.
I'm increasingly struck by something that both of you gentlemen seem to have picked up on, which is that we're dealing with Taliban to keep Pakistan off balance. Now, how well is that going to go down in Afghanistan, saying that, they're not talking about us, but they're more interested in using us to sort of...
No, I would like to point out it is, the focus is on the Afghans, rightfully so as brought out. We have to focus on the people of Afghanistan for their development, for their welfare, use their resources to make them rich. I said it has got the potential to be the next Dubai, and Hajikak iron ore mines are there, Ainak copper mines are there, Amu Darya Basin is there. It's got such huge amount of mineral resources, amazing. This study was done, $4.1 trillion worth of mineral resources. So in all these things, we can help them. Everything of theirs, no country today, even Chinese are trying, and it is to our strategic advantage that we should be stepping in over there so that China does not make an entry there. China, as it is trying, we have to make entry in that area through the road connectivity through Iran, Chabar and all, and going up to Central Asia. But Afghanistan, we are going as friends. Our latent intent obviously is to overcome the influence of Pakistan. And let me tell you, Pakistan has zero influence there. Just terrorists, some of them they have trained. The hatred they have Mother, I can tell you so many people, when I was getting back to India, I was going to take over my division in Firozpur on the Pakistan border. You know what the Afghans used to tell me? Pashtuns, General Sahab, आप यहाँ से हमला करो, हम यहाँ से करते हैं, देश को खत्म करो. The hatred they have. I can get you so many Afghans who just, whether it is women, the children, the ladies, anyone, and let me tell you, the women are very educated. You know, they also talk the same language. Everyone hates Pakistan like hell. This is what India should exploit this. When we are so much admired, so much loved. Today you see Afghans are here in Delhi. They are so happy here. No one, I sometimes talk to them in Pashto and Dari, whatever I know. You know, they've become so happy, and everyone is happy in India. Why they are not going to Pakistan? And Pakistan, mein the refugees who had gone, 1.5 million refugees.
They've all been kicked out.
Let me tell you, they were raped, murdered badly. I have had the General Sher Mohammad Karimi, he was the army chief. He used to tell me, General, every time their chief tells them, send the Pakistan, the people, the Afghan army to Pakistan army, they said, no way. We don't want to make our officers ISI agents. So all this is known, and therefore India must be there in every manner, not to counter Pakistan. That is the last, that is just a automatic payoff.
Yeah.
We should focus on the Afghans, development, inclusivity, government, education, everything. We have so much of talent, a youth. Afghan youth is also very talented. Let's get so many things. Not only military training, we have got so many people of their youth to Indian colleges. Way back in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, they were so happy. Another good thing is, I must tell you, culture. I was stunned. In their marriages, they put on Indian sarees. They used to tell me, हिंदी में, जनरल साहब, आपके देश में लोग साड़ी वाड़ी भूल गए, मॉडर्न कपड़े पहनते हैं, हमारे में तो देखो. And really, I was stunned, and such expensive sarees. So what I'm trying to say is, the love and admiration for India, the honor, regard, respect, including for our so-called, the movie stars. They used to tell me, आप कोई भी movie star ले आओ, तालिबान क्या सारी वो आ जाएंगे. So this is India. This is India. And who used to also tell me this? All foreigners, 52 country people, Turkey से लेके सारे Iranian बोलते थे यार, India just stands out. So then India naturally should exploit this strategic advantage of people to people.
The goodwill that we have.
Yes, yes.
We still have that goodwill, you're saying.
Yes, solid goodwill. Let me tell you, I'm in touch with a lot of Afghans. Some of them are Singapore, Germany. The way we start talking, we are such friends and large-hearted. One thing I can say, I was getting my elder son married in the Indian Army. I took formal permission. 10 Afghans came to attend the marriage on their own kharcha. Who will do it?
That's quite fascinating. We seem to be running out of time. Otherwise, we could have had this discussion for a very long time. Let me end with a last quick question to you, sir. Where is the gap that we have for right now? Do you see anything that we should be doing but we aren't?
So just to take on the question that you asked, I think the key is to expedite things. What we have done is moved a little slowly in terms of engaging with the Taliban establishment in Afghanistan for various reasons. But I think the key now will be to have deeper engagement, to focus on issues that will have high impact in Afghanistan. Because I think those things will have benefits for us. I think the classic example, is for, we constructed the Afghan parliament for them,
yes,
which was, very well accepted by the Afghan people. Things like that, I think, will help us a great deal. And it will give us a certain degree of leverage. After all, today it's economics, and we've seen in the case of Sri Lanka that it's money that, matters the most. If we can do that, perhaps quietly, and to a larger measure in terms of aid and assistance, I think not just the Afghan people, but also the international community will wake up and say, India is perhaps best placed to help turn Afghanistan around.
That's a wonderful note to end the conversation with. Thank you so very much, gentlemen.
Thank
and I look forward to having you with us again sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You very well summed up.
That was a discussion on Afghanistan by two really eminent people who know the subject much more than us poor journalists do sometimes. I do hope you enjoyed this particular edition, and I look forward to seeing you again. Till then, this is Ramananda Sengupta signing out.